y'all. We're going to have a little Bible study. So it says, when Jesus heard of it, he departed and hence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion toward them. And he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came unto him, saying, this is a desert place, a dry place. This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, and they may go into the villages and buy themselves food. But Jesus said unto them, they don't need to go away. Give them something to eat. And they said unto him, we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. He said, bring them to me. Bring the 5 loaves and 2 fish to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed it and broke it and gave the loaves to his disciples. And the disciples gave the food to the multitude. And they did all eat and were filled. And they took up the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full. There were 12 baskets of food left over after everyone ate. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, children, and women. First of all, let's talk about how the fact of, Jesus will, when you're in a situation and you feeling like, look, this is all I got, it's not enough, it's not going to work. I don't see how this is going to be enough for this or that or whatever the case may be. In this scripture where Jesus feed more than 5,000 people, he's showing you that all you have is all you need, and what you do have, he's able to stretch. He's able to provide an overflow in that situation of something that just looks like so little. Notice how the disciples wanted to turn the multitude away into the villages and have them go eat somewhere else, because they were in the mindset of they were not realizing who they were in the presence of. They were in the presence of the Messiah, and they were in the presence of someone who could make a little a lot. And it's so powerful how Jesus showed them how I can take these 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and break it and bless it and ask God to multiply it. And what it does is it runs over, it spills over, and it provides overflow to where there's even some left over. Like, that's just so powerful right there, because God is so, he's the God of exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask for or think. But in this situation, it's like he didn't have no fear. He wasn't concerned. He was worried about God's glory being shown, and this was the perfect time to be able to bless something that they thought was not going to be able to fulfill or be conducive to feeding a whole lot of people. So in this situation, Jesus made a little a lot. So keep that in mind. Next, this is talking about where Jesus walks on the sea. It says, and straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into the mountain apart and prayed. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves from the wind, was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, it is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spoke unto them, saying, be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it is you, ask me to come on the water. And he said, come. And when Peter came down off the ship, he walked on water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. He cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, why do you have little faith? Why are you doubting? And when they were come into the ship, and when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. And they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, of a truth art thou Son of God. So in this chapter right here, where he walked on the sea, first of all, I just want to commend Peter for like stepping out of a situation to where, you know, all of these disciples are on the boat, and for them to think or have a thought that this is the Spirit of God walking on water, and for Peter to speak to Jesus in the midst of a storm and ask him, is it him? And for Jesus to tell him to come, and for him to step outside of a situation that was not normal. Mind you, no one else walked outside of the boat or stepped outside of the boat but Peter. So Peter had so much faith to know that he knew that this was Jesus walking on water. And as you heard, you know, Jesus was not the only one who walked on water. Peter walked on water as well. And it's just like us. A lot of times God is calling us out of certain situations, and he's calling us to step out or walk out on faith, and he's trying to allow us to see that he has us in the midst of it all. He has us in the midst of the storms, in the midst of, you know, the trials and tribulations that we endure on this earth. But it's when we take our eyes off him that we begin to sink like Peter. It's when we take our eyes off him that we begin to get depressed and have anxiety, and, you know, think about everything that he doesn't want us to think about. He wants us to seek first the kingdom. He wants us to seek him. He wants us to keep our eyes focused and stayed on him, so that, you know, we can continue to walk on water. We can continue to experience a season of overflow. We can continue to do what he has called us to do, and fulfill the purposes and the plans that he has set out for us to fulfill here on earth. And, you know, this is so like amazing how Jesus just shows us, like in the middle of a storm on a whole sea, like he's able to walk on that thing. Like we serve that type of God who's able to walk on water. We serve that type of God who's able to take 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and feed a multitude where it seems like there was never enough. We serve a God who can do exceedingly abundantly above everything that we can ask for or think. So never ever doubt that God can't come through for you, or he won't show up in the situation that you're in, because as you can see in these chapters, you know, God is there in the midst of it all, and he will never leave you nor forsake you. It's just up to us, you know, all the time to be able to stay focused, to stay on the path of righteousness, and to keep our eyes stayed on him. It's so important that we don't waver, or we don't tarry, or we don't look to the left when he's telling us to go straight, or look to the right. It's important that we continue to, you know, give him the glory, the honor, and to pray and the praise, and just keep our eyes, our thoughts, our minds stayed on him. So yeah.